All right, good evening, everyone. Sorry about the late start. It's currently 10 minutes after 5. I want to welcome everyone to this regularly called meeting of the Temple City Council for July 17th, 2025. To open our meeting, we'll have an invocation led by Liz Caraway, and our pledge will be led by Jan Llewellyn. Ms. Caraway. Oh, I'm sorry, please write.
Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for gathering us today as both observers and active participants in this city council meeting. We are grateful for the open discussion and ultimately the decisions made. May you bless the efforts of the council and city staff as they strive to make the right decisions for both the current issues facing our city as well as the future. Keep them united in purpose with the will and best intent for the entire city in mind. As our council and city employees give unrelenting work to serve and care for each member of our community, with the fullness of your Spirit, Father, I ask you to fill them with hope, surround them with empathetic co-laborers, provide them wisdom, and fuel them with the energy to answer a greater purpose of service. Throughout this evening, I pray for your guidance in finding peaceful resolutions to any conflicts that may arise. Help both the council and citizens to approach disagreements with a spirit of reconciliation, understanding, and with mutual respect. In these things I pray. Amen.
Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, ladies. Next is time for public comments. Any citizens who wish to address the council on any matter may do so, as long as you signed up prior to this meeting. We ask you keep your comments to no more than 3 minutes. And please understand that no discussion or final action will be taken. We have a couple of folks that have signed up tonight. First, we'll have A.W. Wooten. Please step to the podium. Did you want to speak on item 7?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. Is there a public hearing? Okay. Well, no, it's actually, I'm glad you did, because that item is not subject to a public hearing tonight. But if you would like to step forward and give us your comments in public comments, that would be great. Otherwise, you would have been mad when I told you that.
Yeah, probably. But the first time I messed something up, so
That's all right.
we'll go from there.
Yes, sir.
Well, the young lady's prayer, thank you very much. Just reminded me I need to not be who I thought I was gonna be here tonight. This whole situation has been exceedingly frustrating for me, partially because I don't have a staff, I don't have a lawyer, I don't have an engineer, I don't have any of those things that y'all have to prepare for something like a rezoning. And this particular rezoning does have a direct impact on me. It has a direct impact on Mr. Bouchard, who lives on the opposite corner of that particular property that's being developed. It has a direct impact on Mr. Morris, who lives right next to that property. He's already had to reduce his home $10,000 while he's still in the Philippines trying to have a nice time with his new bride. So it's frustrating because there's nobody here, and I don't think there's anybody over here who lives within a half a mile of 101 Eagle Landing and is going to have to deal with the sights, sound, and smells for the next 3 years of construction that's going to go on right outside of my front door. There apparently were 16 people who said no. Every single one of those was a resident, if I remember correctly, at the last meeting that said no, they don't want this there. The 3 people who said yes were, of course, the business owner who's trying to do this, Mr. Pearson, which I understand. He probably wants to be a great neighbor, and I hope he is a great neighbor. I really do. Because good fences make good neighbors, and that was a whole lot of the argument, but that's neither here nor there. They'll figure that out with the HOAs and Mr. Pearson. But the only people who said yes to it were you guys who don't live anywhere near there, and the 2 business owners that are probably farthest away from that particular development. So it just feels a lot like without a staff, without a lawyer, without backup coming weeks and months ahead of time, because this stuff didn't just crop up. I mean, I found out about it 6 weeks ago and I'm still behind trying to figure out the internet and everything else that goes on with it. And trying to get to a halfway reasonable, intelligent, set of arguments about this. So I don't have a staff to pull a briefing for me or a code compliance guy to tell me what I can and can't do with my property. You said last time, you're not going to tell Mr. Pearson what he can and can't do with his property. But I guarantee you, I fill in that 20-foot easement behind my house and fill in that drainage. Y'all will be out there in no time telling me to undo it and charging me for it. Okay. So it feels a little disingenuous, this whole process. You have all this time and all this money and all these people dedicated to this. And I'm just Joe Schmo with a poor West Texas, public education. It just doesn't feel right to me. So it's just frustrating because again, it is going to be literally out my front door. I'm going to walk out my front door and I'm going to see this development every single day in a house in a neighborhood that I have loved and specifically retired here and bought for my wife because it was a house she loved 15 years ago. And so I just feel like something's being taken from me that I can't do much about. Because it really does feel like, though this is a property state, the individual property owners always have, first rights, as long as it doesn't involve money or business. And as soon as that happens, all bets are off. And that's just, again, that's a personal opinion. That's just what it feels like for me from my vantage point out my living room window. Again, I hope Mr. Pearson is a good neighbor. I believe he wants to try to do the right thing, and I hope he does do the right thing because he foolishly gave me his phone number. So I'll make sure he's a good neighbor if I have to, but I don't want to. I know y'all are going to vote the way you're going to vote, which is absolutely fine. I understand that democracy is the good of the many over the few. I spent 28 years of my life defending democracy all over the world, and I wouldn't change it. Still doesn't make it easier when you're the few, not the many. So again, ma'am, thank you for your prayer, wherever she went to. That was excellent. Because that helped me focus my thoughts just a little bit more on what I wanted to say about the whole thing. And my main point to this is I have to live with this. Y'all don't. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wooten. Next on virtually, we have Mr. Alan Lytle. Alan, are you there? Looks like he's muted.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you. This is Alan Lytle. I live here in Temple. And first off, I want to apologize for not being there in person. Unfortunately, for the past several months, I've had some health issues. And so I've missed a few of the meetings and haven't been able to keep up with you guys. So I really missed it, but I'm glad I can at least come back and talk to you over the computer. Secondly, I would like to thank Mr. Kirkendall, Councilman Kirkendall, for having the courage to come take over for Susan. I'm sure he'll do a fantastic job. I'm sorry I'm late in congratulating him, and I totally appreciate the fact that he had the courage and the wherewithal to come take over and work with the city council. And finally, last night I had the opportunity to visit with Officer King. He's a very lovely, polite police officer. He was helpful, informative, and just all around the nice guy that all of our police officers are. Thank you so much.
We miss you too, Alan.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for your comments, Alan. We do hope that you're able to make it back soon. Take care.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Next item is item number 3 is the final public hearing to consider adopting a resolution approving the Community Development Block Grant 2025 through 2029 Consolidated Plan and the 2025-2026 Annual Action Plan, including funding recommendations. Ms. Chopin.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Our consultants presented the plans in their entirety at the last council meeting. We have the presentation available if you would like to see it again. If not, we ask that you open the final public hearing and adopt the plans as presented.
Very good. Council, any questions for Ms. Chopin or the consultant? All right. Thank you, ma'am. So I will open the final public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on this matter may do so. We ask you step to the podium and state your name for the record or raise your hand on the virtual platform. No one there? No one? Right. I will close the public hearing and council, I'll entertain a motion on item 3.
I move to approve item 3 as presented.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Pilkington. We have a second by Councilmember Grant. Council, please cast your vote. Item 3 passes 5 votes to 0. Item 4 is a public hearing and to receive a presentation by city manager and conduct a public hearing on the proposed fiscal year 2025-2026 budget. Ms. Myers?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So I'll try to go through this quickly, but I felt it important to kind of give the context to the public of the conversations that we've been having over the last several sessions as we've worked through this proposed budget and business plan together. So before we look at where we're heading, just a quick glance back at where we've been. Council, I told you when we met in workshop last week that this 2025 is the final year of our first 6-year business plan. And so it's been a time of reflection for me on where we've come from and where we're heading into the future. That first plan was an important one. Y'all have seen this picture before. This is the City Council of 1962. This City Council here in the City of Temple made a very important vote that year to secure additional water rights for the future of this community. It was a very bold vote, but really set up our community to be what we enjoy today with industry and quality of life, healthcare, and just a wonderful place to call home. And so we talked about back in 2019 when we were establishing this first plan that we wanted to make sure that we were planning in a broad horizon so that we could set up the current council. This was the council at the time. Obviously, we have many new faces on to make to identify and act on those types of 1962 decisions that would be change makers for the community and important decisions and important foundations for the generations that will come after us. To do that, we started with our strategic plan, which we developed together in 2019. That set the vision, the council's goals, and the vision for where you wanted the organization to go. We followed that along with a plan that operationalized that by taking that strategic plan and building it out into a 6-year budget plan, business plan that included not only an annual budget, but a 6-year total plan looking at how we take each of those goals and those initiatives that you set up in the strategic plan and put the resources that would be necessary to have them accomplished into motion. And so that began our first 6-year plan back in FY 2020. And again, 2025 is the last year of that original plan. So what's next for our community? I told you when we met last week that I felt like the business plan, the 6-year business plan, has served us well. It has helped us to provide services in the face of a growing community. And I think it is something that we should continue. I think that having the foundation as our strategic plan has been a wise decision by council. You've heard me, say that if you don't know where you're going, any old path will get you there. So it's important to know where you're heading first before you set the course in which you take your actions. Else you'll be wandering and not in any path of motion. So once that vision has been set, again, we establish the financial plan, which takes the resources that are available, which we certainly worked a lot on that today, to determine what resources would be available to take and set forth towards the various priorities. The annual budget takes the first year of that 6-year plan and officially appropriates it, which tonight is the start of a process that will take us through to August when we will do just that. And then the capital plan is an important piece of our business plan because a lot of what we're doing to serve our growing community and to prepare us to support that growth as well as take care of the infrastructure investments that have already been made and ones that we're now stewarded with keeping in good condition and good working order is a robust capital program. The reason that we look at this in a 6-year time frame is because it's very important for us to present you with not just a piece of the puzzle and asking you to make a decision without seeing how that particular decision point fits into the bigger picture that you have set, the bigger vision you have set for what you want to see this community move towards in the future. So we like to, as much as possible, we like to show you how that one piece fits into the much bigger vision that you've set for the community. And this planning effort helps us do that. Again, the foundation of this plan is our strategic plan, which you first adopted in 2019. We did a major update to it last year with the community's help. We established focus group and working groups to present any changes to that plan. I feel like it's a very solid plan and continues to serve us well with a simple but important mission and vision statement, our organizational values, and importantly, the 5 focus areas that you have set for us to focus our resources and our time and attention on, which is high-performing organization, communication and collaboration, places and spaces, smart growth, and health and safety. Underneath those 5 focus areas, you've established 9 goals. These are the current goals. We do have some recommended tweaks to them, but you can see that these have been in place in a similar format for the last few years, and I feel like they're strong goals that will continue to set us towards the path that I believe you are continuing wanting to see us move towards. So with that look at where we've been and what's working well, I wanted to reflect on what's to come or what I would recommend for 2026 and beyond. So I have 2 main themes in the work that we've done thus far this year. And those 2 themes are structuring for success so that we lay a strong foundation within our organization and so that we can scale with growth. As our community continues to experience significant growth, we are prepared to meet the needs and rise to the level of service that's needed by that growing community and that we can build together for the future of the City of Temple. So a little bit more detail on structuring for success. This involved a very significant organizational review this year. We looked at every single department, every single division, every single program, every single team, in fact, every single position, and did a wholesale adjustment to the organization. Council, we went over that in detail in workshops last week and today, so I won't repeat that in its full detail, but you know that part of the goals for that was so that we had some standardization across the organization, that we identified where we might need additional management capacity or to strengthen management capacity so that we were able to support our growing teams to ensure that we have a manageable span of control and highlight areas where our structure may have outgrown what we need to do now as a growing community. We also wanted to make sure that we were setting the organization up to effectively be able to scale with growth so that we set a good, strong foundation today. We can add the frontline teams and services that are needed to meet the needs of our community as we grow, and that those additional teams and individuals would be added into a effective organization that's functioning at a high level and ready to provide services to our community. We wanted to make sure that we established our work in alignment with the strategic focus areas that you've set for us, and that certainly, very importantly, that we were able to provide budget transparency, that we were connected very clearly to where a particular resource, whether that be a new position, a new project, a new contract, whatever that might be, that was clear to see where that resource was going in terms of the outcome that it would achieve in delivering services for our community, where we were already spending the money in delivering services, and where those things could be enhanced, or where we needed to add additional resources to meet the expectations of that you've set for us and that our community has as we continue to grow. So this is a summary picture of the organization as a whole. We looked at each area and defined each department. I also looked at it from a standpoint of how departments, the core services provided by each department aligned with a specific focus area. So we reviewed that in detail when we met last week. These are the tweaks to the goals that I would recommend to help us further align the work that we do within those 5 focus areas. So the proposed goals are to have an organization that's committed to performance excellence, talented and dedicated employees who have a heart for service, facilities and technology that power performance, open and responsive communication and community engagement, beautiful spaces and unique experiences, neighborhoods where people love to live, a healthy and safe community, infrastructure systems and equipment that support exceptional services and safe and smart growth, and a city that supports well-managed growth to promote a thriving economy. We looked at how each of those departments aligned with the focus areas, and how we talked a lot last week, as you recall, about how we could organize the work that we do to further drive the strategic initiatives that were defined as part of our strategic plan. We looked at a couple of examples about how those goals aligned with different projects and initiatives, and how those management teams would help us move forward with the work that we do through the strategic plan, and driving progress towards our goals through projects and initiatives that you've identified as part of that strategic planning initiative. We looked at how those pods would be structured, and how that they would help align our supporting departments to help best support our operating departments, and making sure that we're working together as a team with consistency and with good focus towards moving towards the accomplishment of the goals. We looked at the department structure, and how we were looking at departments, divisions, programs, teams, and individuals, and how, again, we walked through how we looked at each of these departments, each of the departments throughout the city in this context, so that we were very clear in the organizational structure that we've established, and we can connect those resources to service goals that council sets for our organization and wants to see delivered to the community. Just a few examples there. So as we completed that organizational work, we also looked for scaling with growth for the future. Maybe. There we go. We talked about how the city is a growing community. We have this year, we've surpassed the 100,000 population. We have been ranked as one of the top 20 fastest growing communities in the entire United States of America. So we're experiencing some pretty significant growth at this time. If you look at all of the cities in the United States, all of the bar on that you see there, the graphic you see, all the dark blue are cities that are growing slower than us, and we're amongst the top group that's growing at a pretty fast pace. If you look at just what we've experienced, our growth rate just since 2020, when we first started this business planning initiative, we have added an entire council district to our community of constituents and residents to serve. That means that for every 4 people that we were serving in 2020, today we're serving 5 people. So very, very significant, fast growth. A lot of that is driven by just the excellent location that Temple enjoys. We have been able to capitalize on economic development and intentional growth through working with companies to recruit capital investment and the creation of well-paying jobs to provide for our residents and to support that community growth. We're continuing to invest in those efforts by growing our North Industrial Park and our South Industrial Park investments in both of those areas to provide continued expanded areas for business growth within our community. In addition to the growth, we also talked about that service, an additional service demand driver beyond just the growth that we're experiencing is increasing service level expectations over time. So we've talked about how, historically, certain levels of service delivery were appropriate and acceptable within the organization. An example that I gave you was water line repair, and that historically, prior to our business planning efforts, the organizational goal was to fix a non-emergency water leak within 2 months of the time that we were aware of it. And that was one of the things that you all told me early on in 2019 that you wanted to see adjusted and you wanted to see additional resources. So we added additional crews and resources to that area. And now we're down to really the only thing that constrains us with repairing a water leak right away is just the time it takes us to call in for utility line locates that, is required to make sure that other utility providers have that marked. So that's an example where historically one service level was resourced for, and that was what was accepted. And we have over time wanted to see increased service levels. The same can be said on our sanitary sewer overflow prevention program, our water treatment, our pavement preservation program. As council knows, prior to our business planning efforts, we didn't have any operational funding for street maintenance, for things like slurry seal that are so important to maintaining your street infrastructure. So that's another example of a service level that we adjusted. We wanted to see us doing more in that area than had historically been done. Sidewalk repair is another area that is an example of that. Other factors to consider in budget, especially related to revenue, is the state's Disabled Veterans Property Tax Exemption Program. So as council knows, this is an excellent benefit that's provided by the state of Texas to our veterans who have served our country and as a result of that service have some level of disability. The maximum amount of exemption is 100%. So for our veterans who have 100% disability rating, they have 100% exemption from property taxes. And that, again, that's a state level program. That's a program that was established by the state and applies statewide. But certainly there's some communities like ours that are near military bases, and so we have a significant disproportional effect of that program. The state initially recognized that in 2015 when they established a program to make whole the cities who were disproportionately affected by that program. They allocate about $9 million per year to reimburse cities and counties that have more than 2% of their general fund loss because of that state level exemption. Unfortunately for the city of Temple, just our loss alone in 2025 was a little bit over $3 million. So statewide, $9 million is set aside for all cities and counties that qualify. Our loss alone, is almost a third of what, or more than a third of what they've set aside statewide. So this past year, we were essentially eligible for about 15 cents on the dollar of what we actually lose, what we would have been reimbursed by the state. The state has since added more eligible entities, but not increased that reimbursement threshold or that set aside. So we anticipate seeing even less of a reimbursement in future. And as you can see here, this is a program area that is expected to grow. We have seen here in Temple a growth of 25 to 30% of homes that qualify for this each year. So it's growing here in our community at a rapid rate. We project out here if you continue to have that level of growth in this program, then you'll see that in future years our impact will exceed 14 million if we continue to grow at the rate we've been experiencing in the last couple of years.
Ms. Myers, if the threshold is 2%, what is the city of Temple's threshold?
We are,
Isn't it about
I
three?
want to say that it's about 4% this year. But I don't have the precise number. I'm sorry.
No, that.
We can get that for you.
No, well, I thought that was about it. I just think it's important to point out that just a few years ago, that amount of lost revenue due to this tax exemption was about $800,000. And now just 4 short years later, it's 3.3, and you can see that it's going to continue to climb and climb at a faster rate than
Right.
previously. So this is an important it's an important issue that folks need to understand. It's
Right.
what impact it has on communities.
Yes, sir.
We are
It's-
100% for veterans getting all the benefits that they deserve based upon their service and disability, but it's still it's still it's difficult to make ends meet.
It's
It makes it
difficult
more
because the state doesn't fully fund the program.
Right.
So, and Mayor, to your point, our first business plan in 2020, the impact of this program was 1.1 million. So it's tripled in that time period. Which when you equate that to the impact that has on our property tax rate, you can see it's a little over a 4-cent impact that, if that lost revenue were being made whole by the state, we would be able to, that would be the equivalent of having 4 additional cents that otherwise has to be generated from property taxes or other charges for service or fees.
Right.
Other areas of revenue consideration is our capital program. As council knows, we have a robust capital program that we have invested in over the last several years. Again, we have done this both. We have the unique, somewhat unique position of being a very fast-growing community, but also a historic community. So we have needs on both ends of the spectrum to put in new infrastructure to meet the needs of growth, but also to take care of and reinvest in the older parts of our community to make sure that those that infrastructure continues to function well and be in good condition. And many times it has reached the end of its life and needs to be replaced. Whether we're talking about a water line or a sewer line or a road, certainly take care of it. It goes along, but at some time it has a full rehab or full replacement is needed. So we've done a remarkable amount of capital work over the last several years. And for us, capital comes from our certainly capital that is supported by property tax is funded directly from the property tax rate, and we don't have any other source of revenue for that. So you can see over the last few years in 2015, and just a quick explanation here. There are 2 parts of a property tax rate. You have what's called an operating part or M&O, maintenance and operations, and then you have a debt service part or an interest and sink in an INS rate, which helps you pay for your capital needs that you're financing over time. So you can see in 2015, our operating rate was 33 cents and our debt service rate was 25.64 cents. In 2025, we've reduced our operating rate, but increased our capital rate. So more is going to capital to meet the needs over the last few years, and we've actually reduced the operating tax rate over the last several years as we've prioritized capital. Speaking of capital, again, many communities have at least an additional source of funding for capital, which is comes in the form of what's called an impact fee. Most of our peer cities that we look at when we're doing cost of service studies and compensation studies and the like have some form of impact fees. Most of the areas in our region are somewhere between $5,000 and $10,000 per single family home. That this is essentially charged at the point of development, intended to cover roads and water and sewer lines necessary to support that development. You can see Georgetown and Pflugerville have much higher rates, but These fees are generated again at the time of development to cover a portion of the capital expenditure. And so for us, we have historically not charged impact fees. They're not proposed. And so our capital rate on the property tax has to carry the weight of all of the infrastructure that we choose to invest in. Another revenue factor is our average taxable value, just keeping in mind that the function of the property tax that you and I as residents pay, and that you and I as stewards of taxpayer dollars use to provide services for the community is a function of two things. You take your taxable value of your home or property that you own, and you multiply that by the tax rate, and that generates the tax bill that you pay and the tax revenue that the city or the taxing entity receives to provide those services. So in communities around us, like College Station, Georgetown, and Round Rock, as the examples that I have on the screen, that average taxable home value is significantly higher than Temple's, and that's not a bad thing or a good thing. It's just an example of saying that for example, a 50-cent tax rate in one of those cities would generate the same revenue that we would have to charge over 80 cents to get here. And that's important to remember because remember that taxes go to pay for things like fire services and police services and street maintenance. And so to answer a 911 call here in Temple is not less expensive than it is in College Station. We have to invest in the same number of firefighters to provide that service. The apparatus company doesn't give us a discount on the fire truck because our average home value is less. It costs the same to build the station, to hire the personnel, to equip them. So that service still costs what it costs, and you generate the amount of money to pay for it based on, again, that function of value times rate. So you have to keep both of them in mind when you're making your considerations, not just one or the other. And then we also have a great opportunity in our community because we do have a tax increment financing reinvestment zone, and that provides a lot of value for us as we invest in economic development. But it also covers a third of our community, and is something for us to consider as we plan out how we deliver services and pay for them. So I'll go quickly, but as we dive into each of the focus areas and look at how that all comes together in terms of resources for future needs. Again, council, we went through this in detail, but we looked at each department, looked at each position within each department, what was proposed to be changed, and we went through that exercise together on Friday. So just some highlights. We want to continue to invest in our customer care, which is a new department that helps support service delivery between residents who are seeking services from the community and our operating departments who are providing those services. We believe strongly that a resident shouldn't have to know the inner workings of how our organization is structured to access services from us. So we want to make that a streamlined process for people to be able to get the services that they want and need from the City of Temple. In the area of communication and collaboration, we've invested in this area in the past. A few additional recommendations as we continue the good work that this team has done. In the area of places and spaces, this covers our first goal is beautiful spaces and unique experiences. This covers our also our communications team has a role in this as they manage our special events, but certainly our parks program. So we looked at this program together and the opportunities to create a park ranger program to enhance resources to help us continue to maintain our parks, and our roadside mowing crews are in this area. Our cemetery operations are in this area with some recommendations coming from the Hillcrest master plan that you recently reviewed and adopted. And then our golf course is also managed under our Parks Department. In recreation, this is the area that delivers recreational programming for our community, including athletics and aquatics, with a couple of recommendations there to strengthen our program offerings, and then other recreation facilities and programs, including the running of our 3 main recreation centers, Wilson Rec, Salmons Community Center, and Summit Wellness Center. So we talked about how we would enhance programming delivery by having a consolidated team working on that programming and delivering it through the different centers that we support. This area also covers library and museums. There is a consideration for our first branch library within the 6-year plan, which would be in South Temple, and then an additional youth services librarian. For neighborhoods where people love to live, we talked about our Love Where You Live neighborhood planning program, the great progress that we've made on planning together with our different neighborhoods on what they would like to see for the future of their areas in terms of investments in public infrastructure, but also in just strengthening the social fabric of our neighborhoods and helping to foster engagement and communication amongst neighbors. So we've done a lot of those plans. We still have several left to do. It's been a very rewarding, I think, and successful program for us. So we've talked about a new department that would focus in on this area, would deliver more in-house what we have historically been contracting out related to our neighborhood planning, and then would also be responsible for managing the the capital program associated with the neighborhood plan. So the actual implementation of those plans would be run through this department as well. Neighborhood services, which we have historically called housing and community development, is also in this area. They provide a variety of services to our community, including helping our organization manage our inbound and outbound grants, including the community development block grant that you voted on tonight. They also provide housing services to our community through our home improvement program and our home rehabilitation and rebuilding program. Neighborhood engagement, which works closely with our Love Where You Live program, but also works with our community, our neighborhood coalitions and neighborhood homeowners associations to help support sharing of information and building community within the city. And then finally, this area also includes case coordination, working closely with the nonprofits and public safety to help deliver services to those experiencing homelessness or those who might have substance use needs or need to access services from either the services we provide directly or through our nonprofit partners. District services, which has been historically called Transform Temple, continues to focus on downtown operations, code compliance, and parking management, but implements or suggests a new program that would take that level of care that is provided in downtown out to our other districts, help us be able to be more proactive about the work that we do throughout the community and maintaining city infrastructure. So a team to look to make sure that we are addressing needs on our side as keeping our community beautiful and well maintained, and having a specific team to help with that initiative. In smart growth, infrastructure, systems, and equipment, we talked about our smart growth mobility capital improvement program, which again is continues to be very significant. Projects that are included as part of that include strategic right-of-way acquisition for the Henderson Street project, construction of Salisbury sidewalks coming out of the Northwest Hills neighborhood plan Fifth Street improvements coming out of the TMed district plan, Rin Road extension coming out of the Bird Creek neighborhood plan, Barton Avenue sidewalks coming out of the Central neighborhood plan, Avenue D improvements coming out of the Ferguson Park neighborhood plan, Nugent Avenue improvements coming out of the, I believe, Garden District plan, 14th Street improvements coming out of the Ferguson Park plan, North Street sidewalks coming out of the Bel Air neighborhood plan, and the MLK and Avenue M intersection improvements coming out of the Las Cruces plan. So several projects proposed to continue implementation of those strategic projects identified in the neighborhood plans. Additionally, there is some contribution towards Veterans Memorial improvements, which is largely funded through grant funds and also in partnership with the reinvestment zone. So that $3.3 million is not representative of the entire project cost, but just the cost that would come out of these bond funds is not otherwise covered in grants or increment revenue. And then Avenue C and 24th Street improvements are both in support of neighborhood planning projects, but are proposed to be funded through the reinvestment zone. Projects to help support our continued growth as a community include construction of Hartrick Bluff Road south of 93 to city limits, Little River Road improvements, which would be a phased project. The first phase is actually done. Second phase is proposed as from the Loop 363 to Barnhart. Second phase as Blackland to FM 93. And those are both proposed as full construction projects. The fourth phase, Little River Road from 93 to city limits, is proposed as beginning design within the 6-year plan, but not moving to construction quite yet. Extension of Lake Point Drive, improvements to Spur 93 to support the new proposed school site for Temple ISD. And then we do have grant funds for the second phase of Georgetown Railroad Trail, but we do have a grant match for that project as well. And it also involves the rehabilitation of the historic bridge on our portion of the project. And then finally, some pretty significant dollars towards potential reconstruction projects. Midway, certainly a significant project. This, as council knows, you awarded the design for the first phase of design for this project last meeting. So we'll get some more refinement on the scope of this project as we advance that design, but we have a placeholder in here for construction of those improvements, as well as reconstruction of Case Road, and then $2,250,000 per year each year for both future street reconstruction and future street mill and overlay projects to continue to maintain the infrastructure within our community. And then also an allocation of $450,000 a year for to add new signalized intersections. You do have a signal on your agenda tonight, Zoe. It's on Loop 363. I don't know if you saw that one, but so this is just as our community grows and we identify areas that for safety and traffic congestion need additional signals. This helps us have funding to implement those as they meet warrants. So that's mobility. For utilities, also a very a robust plan, including the first phase of our planned aquifer storage and recovery system, which, as council knows, has been an effort we've been working on for quite some time. This will open up significant additional water resources for our community and is a very forward-looking project. So this would get us our first injection well and the necessary ancillary infrastructure needed to begin operation of that system. We've also proposed the phase 2 of an expansion to our membrane surface water treatment plant that would provide for an additional approximately 8 million gallons of expanded treatment capacity there at our one of our main plants there for treating surface water. Some funding for rehab of clarifier number 4 at the conventional surface treatment plant, and then rehabilitation of our pipe system at the Avenue G ground storage tank area. As far as our elevated storage tanks go, we have proposed one additional at Barnhart and Little River Road, and then the rehabilitation of 5 existing storage tanks, one at West Park, one at Nugent, one at the water treatment plant that serves as the backwash facility, one at Airport Road, and one at Range Road. So each of those would be proposed for rehab, which needs to occur every 10 to 15 years to keep them in good working condition. In terms of water line improvements, we have several. The Temple Heights utility improvements is actually a water and wastewater replacement project in the Temple Heights neighborhood district. We have Northeast Loop 363 water line in 3 phases. They are proposed a water line at Hickory Road and Thornton, which we would propose to align with the construction or the reconstruction of Midway. It's in that general area. North Apache Drive, and then West Adams and 49th Street water line rehab as well. Additionally, the reinvestment zone has the South Temple transmission main phases A, B, and the ground storage, the associated pump station and ground storage facility in their plan. So while that's not in the business plan in terms of the utility CIP, it's certainly important to the overall system. So I wanted to highlight that. And then in terms of wastewater improvements, we have a couple of additional phases of one of our next large replacement projects, which is the Knob Creek Interceptor. So that would be replacement if phases 2, 3, 4, and 5. Council will recall and probably rejoice that we just finished Bird Creek Interceptor finally after 20 years. So these are very big projects that take time and are extensive and are typically phased over time. So while we are grateful and excited that Bird Creek is done, we have Knob Creek still on the plan and still working through that.
Gonna miss that one.
I'm sorry,
Gonna miss that one.
you are?
Yeah, it's been so long. Been on the
Yeah.
work in
Oh,
progress.
the Bird Creek.
Yes,
Yes, I haven't yet, but it used to be an easy, not that anyone ever asked me, but just in case you ever asked me, what's the oldest purchase order that we have outstanding? It was going to be the construction administration contract for Jacobs Engineering, which I think actually changed names like 4 times while we were working on that project. Just again, it was multi-phase, 5-phase, and even actually it was more phases than that.
But I remember it's hand digging under Midway Drive.
Yes, Great Escape style.
That's right.
Yes, truly, it
Yeah.
was. Did you go down there?
I did.
Yeah.
I did.
Yeah, it was quite the project. And Ed Kalaki, who was our project manager on that, especially phase 4, which went through the existing neighborhoods, he did an exceptional job with that project. It could be, I'm not saying it wasn't disruptive to those who lived in that area, but he really did a great job with that. So we still have more work to do though with Knob Creek. And then some additional improvements are needed for Leon River, Trunk Sewer, phases 2 and 3. That's new. So Knob Creek is rehab. Leon River is new. Troy Lift Station needs some rehabilitation as well. And then all right, continuing on sewer needs, West Temple trunk improvements, Little River trunk sewer, Boggy Creek trunk sewer lift station and force main, Little Elm trunk sewer lift station and force main, Williamson Creek South Trunk Sewer, and South Temple Trunk Sewer Lift Station and force main. All of these projects are expansions to our system. And then last but not least in utilities, I believe, is our sanitary sewer rehabilitation program. So council knows that this has been a significant effort and goal to reduce sanitary sewer overflows in our community. When we began this initiative, we had, I think, 300 or more in the year. And so we've cut that down dramatically to just a handful. But those projects like Bird Creek and Knob Creek are important parts of that plan because if you think of sewer lines in terms of comparing them to street classifications, the interceptors are the interstates of sewer lines. So they're the major lines that collect the water from all of the different basins and areas. But all of those big lines have a bunch of local streets, if you will, or local lines feeding into them. And so this program, as you recall, probably we presented it as studying basin by basin. So we started with an evaluation of each basin. There's 6 of them that we've studied. We used a variety of different methods, dye flood testing, physical inspection, smoke testing, to identify what needed to be rehabilitated within these basins. These are the older areas of our, community, things that have been in the ground for a long time. And so this is all of the little lines, the smaller lines that feed into the big lines, so the manholes, the lateral lines that are serving the community. We told you that we were going to start with the one that we anticipated to be the most in need, and then work backward from that. And at least thus far, that has been true. We started with Bird Creek. The needs are great. You can see that number there on the screen, 27, little under 28 million. Knob Creek, also great. Little Elm, a little better. Friars Creek, a little bit better. The last 2, Pepper Creek and Leon, we are still waiting on those assessments to come back, but this is in the plan. This is built into the plan to begin addressing the replacements of these lines that are needed to fix that infrastructure. And again, that will go, that kind of completes between the major infrastructure, Knob Creek, Bird Creek, those investments, this program, and then the annual maintenance and preventative maintenance that we've invested in and continue to invest in. That really completes our plan to make sure that we're not having any sanitary sewer overflows. Oh, but significant effort there. And speaking of significant effort, if you were keeping track of all those projects, those that are managed by our engineering team, so those that are mobility related or utility related, that if you add up what we talked about and what we already have going on, that's over $1 billion in projects that this team is managing. So anything, generally speaking, rule of thumb is anything that you'd hire an engineer to design for you. This is going to be managed by our engineering team. And so we also talked about the structure and the resources they need to be able to have the right project management in place. Specifically adding resources for real estate acquisition, because our right-of-way process is an important part of making sure that we have the ability to deliver the projects on time. So adding resources in that area, as well as additional project management resources and resources to this team does really 2 things. They focus on our development review engineering. So for all of the private sector work that's coming in, that's proposed, they're responsible for reviewing that. That would be the development engineering side. And then they're also responsible for managing all of our capital work. And that's the capital program side. So that's that team. When you look at operating, especially as it relates to mobility, we are recommending that we continue the investment that we've begun in our pavement preservation program. So again, this is the operational funding that allows us to do the slurry seal maintenance. This is the type of maintenance that you need to do every 5 to 7 years on your roads. And this is the, if perhaps you've heard the old saying, a stitch in time saves 9. So, if you invest in something early, if you maintain it and you don't let it fall into disrepair, it's much more cost effective to keep something in good repair than it is to take something that has been left to go to deterioration to bring that back up to standard. So that's the idea here, is to keep our good infrastructure in good repair. And to do that, we need about $1.7 million a year in being able to do that slurry seal. Obviously, council, you authorized a contract for this last meeting, so we are well on our way to this program, but we're adding more each year until we get to that optimal number, and we're suggesting we continue that with this plan. Additionally, for transportation, we have several crews that we're recommending adding, including a sign crew, a pavement marking crew, a pavement repair crew, a concrete crew, a construction crew, a mowing crew for drainage, a forestry or tree trimming crew for our right-of-way team, and then a right-of-way crew that would be focused on alley maintenance. In utility service, also several crews, including 2 construction crews to really help us focus on proactive work on our water side, keeping those water lines in good repair and keeping them fixed before they break. A leak detection crew, 2 additional construction crews, again, on our wastewater side, again, doing that proactive repair so that we're not having leaks and breaks and it's obviously we'll still address those, but keeping that before doing the maintenance that's necessary to help prevent that from happening in the first place. And then our water treatment side, we are still proposing the assumption of maintenance of, right now we have both of our reclamation plants, Temple Belton and Dozier, contracted out. So we do anticipate bringing that back in-house at some point. And then the additional resources for the aquifer storage and recovery system, managing those groundwater wells, and that program adds staffing to this area. Solid waste services, we have proposed 3 additional residential routes, 3 additional recycling routes, and 3 additional commercial routes throughout the 6-year period, starting with a residential garbage, a residential recycling, and a commercial route are all proposed in 2026, and then those are spaced out appropriately based on our population projections throughout the rest of the plan. So you can see we're also adding resources for team leads to help us manage those teams and provide them with frontline leadership in both the commercial and residential programs. So again, 3 routes in each area, 3 garbage, 3 recycling, and 3 commercial routes are proposed. Very connected to solid waste and certainly fire and other places as well is our fleet services team. We're proposing a second shift so that we have a full second shift of mechanics available to service our fleet, both working while our assets are in service and in the field and available to support them, but also working on an evening and overnight shift to help prepare those assets to be back in service the next day. So a great example of this would be a solid waste truck, which has a daytime route, comes off its daytime route, it's handed off to the evening fleet team, all of its preventative maintenance, any repair work that it needs to be done, it's back in tip-top shape, ready to go for the next morning's route. And so this is a high priority proposal that we have. Airport services, not significant changes here, but some additional resources in future years to allow us to continue to provide staffing for customer service at hours that the airport is open. And then resources in our development services team for permit review, plan review, and building inspection to continue to meet the needs for development review as we continue to see growth in our community. That's going to result in increased need for service delivery through our inspection team and our building services team, rather. And we talked about that, the urban design department, and they would have a role in helping manage not only our neighborhood plans, but also many of our long-term planning initiatives that are important to make sure that we stay ahead of growth and that we're growing smartly and that we're making the appropriate investments and the appropriate plans in place. Continued support for the Temple Economic Development Corporation with some additional resources in city manager's office to support, to work alongside of TEDC in delivery of our economic development efforts. And then last but not least, health and safety. Lots of investments here recommended for the fire department. We'll start there. Right now we have 8 stations. We are proposing kind of a 2-part proposal here. Station 9 is proposed as a new station in West Temple. But Station 7 needs to be relocated to make those 2 stations in the optimal locations. So it's really kind of a package deal. 7 is relocated, 9 is a new station. So 9 is proposed as a ladder company. It's also proposed as we talked about earlier today, as the headquarters for the West Battalion for the department. So a little bit larger station. 10 is recommended at near 93 and 31st Street, serving the southern part of our community. 11 is recommended in the North Industrial Park area around Outer Loop and Winland Road. And then 12, 13, and 14 are also identified in our fire master plan. And so we have shown those on the map. We anticipate designing one of those stations, and we'll keep an eye on which one makes sense to do as growth progresses. But the plan at this point shows full construction and staffing of 9, 10, and 11. In addition to that, so a significant capital outlay and operational impact of those needs there. You can see on the screen about just shy of $60 million in capital investment, and then an ongoing annual operational cost of over $6 million for those 3 additions and 1 relocation. So the business plan includes the staffing necessary to open those 3 stations. It also includes adding a 2nd battalion. So we have a battalion on the east side, managing the department's resources that are on the east side, and a battalion on the west side that would manage and provide support for the companies on the west side of I-35. We would also add resources to our fire marshals team, begin the goal of having our truck staffing to be a 4-person minimum instead of the current 3. Begin adding, continue adding what I call coverage firefighters to keep an appropriate ratio of minimum staffing to firefighters that can fill in during times of leave, whether that be planned leave like vacation or holiday, or training, or military leave or deployment, or unplanned leave like sick leave or something like that. And then additional support for our support services program, which would help provide resources to coordinate fleet and facility maintenance, radio needs, equipment, things like that. In police, we have several priorities continuing over from the current plan, including the continued move to 10 patrol districts and 10-hour shifts. We've already staffed this with several staffing phases, but we have several more to go, 4 to be exact. So 4 more phases of staffing through the plan will get us fully staffed in that initiative. We also have recommendations for an additional property crimes detective unit, some additional resources in our community-oriented policing, in our crime scene technician team, and our violent crime enforcement squad. And then training unit, as we've invested in additional training facilities, we need the staff to support that programming. And then certainly important also is our animal services program and providing some additional resources, especially in the shelter side, as we've expanded that shelter, and it's heavily used, and so they need some additional support there, representing recommendation for a manager position and then 2 shelter techs. We talked already about neighborhood services. They have that case coordination function, and district services has that code compliance function that align with health and safety. So, Mayor and Council, that concludes a very, not brief, but high-level overview of the plan. Obviously, we talked about today that you gave me some additional direction in terms of where you wanted to be tax rate wise and fee wise. So this plan that I just ran through very quickly is as filed. In the next few days, the staff team will be working to make the adjustments that you directed today, and we will bring back that at your next workshop. Jana, it's possible we might need one special one this year since we're doing a lot. We might want to do one more special one before the next council meeting if y'all are open to that. But, you know, I think this is the heart of the plan. We will have some tweaks based on the direction that you gave me today. But I think we're well on our way.
I agree. It's, you know, we've talked about this quite a bit as a council, and it's, this is just part of a growing community. These are just sort of the needs that have to be addressed, and there's a lot there, but, I think probably the part that, that I like is, the most is just the fact that we are scaling for growth. The growth here is not going to stop, and with growth comes higher responsibility and higher cost. And I believe this budget is the foundation for setting setting a plan forward to address those things. And because if we don't do it, it will be more expensive not to act than to act. So again, thank you for your good work. And council, before I open the public hearing, do you have any comments on that? Everybody okay? All right, then I'll open a public hearing on this item. If you would, please step to the podium, state your name for the record, or raise your hand on the virtual platform. Okay. Alan,
Yes, sir.
let us have it.
I'm planning on it. Some of you know, I've been trying for several years to get Bell County to declare my property a single family, but that didn't work. So I'm still going to pay full freight on half of the property value for property taxes. So I will continue to keep an eye on this tax rate problem. There were a couple of things I didn't hear anything mentioned about. I've heard that the food truck fees, and I don't know how much we're making from those, but apparently the state has decided those should go away as far as the city goes. So I didn't hear anything about that revenue being reduced from our income. But more importantly, today I heard something I had never heard before, and I'm sure you all had talked about it when I was gone. And that was this public safety fee and the park fee. I didn't do a couple of things about it. One, apparently everybody who has a house, a residence, is going to pay it. So there's no exemptions for old people or homesteads or any of that stuff. Everybody's going to end up paying these fees. And that kind of seems to be like the mayor said it. Some folks are going to complain about it. Well, because it seems like you're maybe trying to go around the fact that they're cutting the property tax from us. But that's, you know, that's something I didn't realize, is that everybody's got to pay this fee. But then I never did hear anything about how it's going to get collected and when it's going to start. Now, hopefully we're not going to create a whole new billing system simply to collect these fees. So I was just kind of curious if you already knew how we plan to collect these fees and when if it's going to start for the January 1 or October.
That's a great question. It will, if approved, those fees will be collected via the water bill, and I'm sure would begin 10/1. Yeah, yeah, October 1. Anything else, Alan?
No, sir. I just wanted to bring that up since I haven't heard anything about it, you know, in any of the council meetings. And so I wanted to be sure that the public was aware that it's going to get hit with up to, what was that? I think you decided it was going to be $8 a piece. So it'd be $16 a month in the coming year, right? So just wanted to let the people know about that. Go ahead.
Yes, sir. We went through lots of options, and
Yes, sir.
I believe it's $3
Oh,
for
okay.
the residents.
Yeah, in
for
the
the
budget
park.
right now, it's $3 a piece, so that's $6.
Right, a total of $6.
But you talked
Yes, sir.
about raising it to $4 a piece. I'd say that'd be $8, not 16. So $8. Right now it's
Right.
$3. So
That's
all right,
true.
sir. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, sir. Is there anyone else on the virtual platform? Anyone in the audience? Okay, very good. Then I will close the public hearing on this budget item. Next is the consent agenda. All items under this section are considered to be routine by the city council and may be enacted in one motion. If discussion is desired by any council member, that item can be pulled for further consideration. Council, there's nothing that needs to be pulled, correct? Unless you're
I don't
going
have
to the
anything
microphone, so.
to pull, but just highlighting item number 4, which is the MOU F. I don't know where I got 4 from. F, which is the memorandum of understanding between the city of Temple and Feed My Sheep that we discussed at the last meeting. And then item G, which just to highlight, that's the design services for that proposed signal at Loop 363 and FM 438, which is also known as East Young Avenue. So I know that was an area of concern, and so that did meet warrants, and so we are recommending that we move forward with installing a traffic signal there.
Very good. Anything else?
And then I think we're also working, not in this item, but we're also working on acceleration and deceleration lanes with TxDOT in Lavandusky and other areas. So a lot that as traffic is increasing on Loop 363, we're working collaborative. That's obviously a TxDOT road, but we're working collaboratively with them to try to find solutions to help improve the safety there. And this signal is one of those things, but not the only thing.
Right. Yeah, that may be the next area of fast development in Temple. So, okay, very good. Council, is there anything that needs to be pulled from the consent for further consideration? Okay, then if not, I will entertain a motion on items 5A through 5U.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
I have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Walker. We have a second by Councilmember Pilkington. Council, please cast your vote. The consent agenda passes 5 votes to 0. Moving on to the regular agenda. Item 6 is the first reading in a public hearing to consider adopting an ordinance approving the Temple Parks and Recreation Department's youth program standards of care and approving the 2024-2025 annual report. Ms. Anderson.
All right, hello, Mayor and Council. I am not giving the report today, but I did want to introduce Susan Kraus. She's one of our division directors for the recreation side of the house in Parks and Recreation. She oversees Wilson Recreation Center, which oversees this program, as well as the athletics division, and then is currently working on beginning to take over the aquatics division as well. So.
Good. Thank you. I don't know if, can you hear me? I feel kind of short here. Mayor, City Council, thank you so much for the opportunity to present to you the City of Temple Parks and Recreation Department's Youth Program Standards of Care. Each year, we seek your approval of the standards of care to maintain compliance with the Texas Health and Human Services requirements, as well as to assure quality of care for the children that we serve in our after-school and our camp programs. Am I in charge of this? Oh, look at that. So a quick review or overview of the child care standards of care. The Texas Health and Human Services Commission regulates child care facilities and programs in Texas. And part of this process is the adoption of rules for the minimum standards of care for the licensed operation to ensure safety and quality of care for the children in Texas. But as a municipality, the City of Temple after-school and camp programs are exempt from licensing. But to remain compliant with the HHS requirements, we have to adopt standards of care for our programs by ordinance, and we must provide these standards to parents. We must also inform parents that we are not licensed by the state, and we cannot advertise our programs as facilities as child care operations. So as part of the requirements, The City of Temple Youth Program Standards of Care are unchanged from last year, and they include staff to student ratios that will not exceed 1 to 20, 1 staff per 20 children. We have minimum employee qualifications that include prior experience working with children, as well as training in youth activity programming, emergency procedures, and classroom management. Minimum building, health, and safety standards that include daily inspections of the safety and cleanliness of the spaces that are used for the programs, including classrooms, restrooms, and playgrounds. And there are mechanisms for monitoring and enforcing the standards and expectations through supervisor observations, regular inspections, and documentation of completed tasks. And the standards also include age requirements with a minimum of being age 5 to participate in these programs. We do strive to provide safe and high quality care, and we feel that part of this is making parent communication a priority. We make sure that parents are aware that we don't have a state child care license, and we make sure that they know they can obtain copies of the standards of care online through the registration process and at parent orientation meetings. Once parents have done their registration process, or once they've registered on our system, they are given an invitation to come and fill out all of the paperwork that's required to complete the enrollment. And at that time, they're given phone numbers, contact information of our staff if they need additional information or if they need any assistance with their registration. So as required by the standards of care, the City of Temple conducts background checks on prospective employees. The employees are required to have first aid, CPR, and food handler certifications, and staff must attend a minimum of 10 hours of annual training. The training includes policies and procedures, emergency action plans, classroom management, and program planning. So just wanted to show you a little bit of an overview of the programs that we offer. These are the schools where we offer after school care, and then the areas where we offer camps. Right now, registration for after school care is open, and for the fall of this year, we will be providing after school at all 6 of these locations that are on the slide. And this is a comparison of our after school participation from 2023-24 to 24-25 with the Belton ISD sites and then the Academy ISD sites shown on the slide. And then this is a comparison of our camp participation from 2023-24 to 24-25. And then we do offer scholarships. We offer financial assistance to qualifying community members. These are the numbers from this year through May. We've worked to make information about assistance and application processes more accessible, and we hope to be able to assist more families in the future through scholarships and payment plans. We're looking forward to an auto pay option, hopefully coming up sometime in the coming year. So today, we would like to recommend that there be no changes made to the City of Temple Parks and Recreation Department's youth program standards of care. So staff recommends approval of the 2025-26 youth program standards of care as presented. So I thank you for your time, and if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Council, any questions? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah. There was no annual report. That was about standards of care, but no annual report was, or did I miss something?
I think when she highlighted the attendance numbers from.
That was it. No
that-
financials or anything?
Yes,
attributed to
it would be the report given is the report is how we're doing. it.
Okay,
Mhm.
all right, that's fine.
Yep.
Very good. All right, this item is subject to a public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak may do so. State your name and address or raise your hand. Mr. Lytle. Got it. Hey, Alan.
Hey, sir, just a quick comment. I'm very proud of the work we're doing with the youth. That's the place to get started, is to get the youth involved here in Temple. So thank them and all the people at that staff for the great job they're doing.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else on the virtual platform? Anyone from the public? Then, council, I will close the public hearing on this item and entertain a motion.
I'll move to approve item 6 as presented.
We have a motion by Councilmember Pilkington. We have a second by Councilmember Kirkendall. Council, please cast your vote. Item 6 is approved, 5 votes to 0. Item 7 is a second and final reading to consider adopting an ordinance authorizing a rezoning and binding site development plan request from ag to plan development general retail to plan development neighborhood services on 12.302 plus or minus acres located in the George W. Lindsay Survey, abstract number 513, City of Temple, Bell County, Texas, addressed as 12000 FM 2305 and 12016 FM 2305. Mr. Deck?
Good evening, Mayor and council members. So as you stated, this is the second reading. I'd like to note that the applicant's engineer is here tonight. The applicant himself was not able to be here due to flight changes out of his control. But we can go through the presentation just to give you a recap from the previous public hearing that this is located out on West Adams, the corner of Eagle Landing, next to the Commonwealth Restaurant and the city's elevated storage tank. And you see that yellow highlighted as the access road to the water tank, as well as being the access entryway for this development. So they have provided an updated site plan. The first thing you'll notice that the townhomes that were shown on the previous site plan have been removed. And at this point, what is proposed are 19 sites for development, but the street layout and the location of the drainage ponds remains the same. So there's be a discussion of the conditions. That was the motion last time of what uses would be allowed overall, what uses are appropriate in that perimeter zone, where the fence and where the landscape buffer are located. And I'll get into it. I'll show you the conditions. I feel you'll want to have some discussion on that. There may be some questions and answers. There was, as stated by Mr. Wooten in the public comment period at the front of the meeting, large number of opposition, 42% of the property owners within that 200 foot. So it does trigger the supermajority requirement. And we did receive additional notices outside. And then the two in agreement were from the business owners across the road to the south. So staff had recommended approval of the plan development neighborhood service rezoning with the site plan, subject to these revised conditions based on the motion that was made at the previous meeting. So number one, there's a condition regarding the site plan, townhomes are removed. You saw that. That number two, this remains somewhat unchanged, that the uses allowed under PD&S will still follow the neighborhood services based zoning. We're not specifically adding or removing uses, but there's two things that are going to guide the development. One is that the building height for all uses shall be limited to 1 story. As you recall, there was a lot of opposition to having the 2-story townhomes overlooking the existing single-family homes. So this ordinance will take the 2-story structures completely out of the equation. And as we've talked about this with city leadership and the developer and heard from the HOA and some of the residents, what we heard was, what are the impacts of the uses outside of the specific business that might go there? What would be the impacts? So we're adding some language into condition 2C that would prohibit parking, grease traps, dumpsters, or outdoor seating in the rear of any businesses that are adjacent to those single-family homes. So not necessarily saying you can't have a restaurant, you're going to have to figure out how to do a restaurant that may be in line with these conditions, and what it may turn out to be easier to do that somewhere else. And that would go along the perimeter would probably be office or some other type of low impact business. But this is what the applicant is willing to agree to. We also heard a lot about the screening in the wall. So we did rearrange this. So in this case, the first requirement for the PD condition is that 8-foot high solid screening, and solid meaning it's not your standard privacy fence that as that wood weathers over time, there's gaps in sound and smell and light, maybe you can get a glimpse through the fence. What we're looking at here is having perhaps an horizontally overlapped boards, but something where the structure of the fence doesn't allow that sight or that light or that sound to filter through. So it has to be solid. That is the key word, that it's a solid fence, 8-foot high. And as Ms. Myers had pointed out, you know, our fence code limits that height to 8 feet. So we're mirroring that here. And that is at the property line. Then the condition will require that 15-foot landscape buffer, and that is shown in that green area. That remains the same. So even though the fence moves, the landscape buffer is still required. The applicant's agreeable to this because even though he is limited to having that buffer, it feels like it's more of a developable space. It's still a benefit to whatever goes there. So the applicant is agreeable to these. And then if there's no agreement with the adjacent owners, if they can't agree either with the HOA or the individual property owners about having that fence, then that fence would default back to that interior location. And then these are the rest of the conditions. There's no changes on these. For the interior streets they'll be privately maintained, but the address to 911, I explained that last time. That is better for your emergency response. The sidewalks are still required. Any lighting fixtures will be required to be downward facing to prevent that glare. And then minor variations or significant modifications. If they sell off a site and that person wants to develop something that isn't in line with this, it's either something that goes through the Director of Development and Services and figure out if that makes sense, or if it's significant enough, comes back to P&Z and to the council. So with that, I'll take any questions you may have.
Something I wanted to point out, and this is told Ryan earlier in the workshop, I don't think you're there. It's completely my fault. I had mentioned grease traps, and I was looking up what I'm intending is the grease receptacles.
We can adjust that wording.
Yeah. That's my fault. I did say grease traps.
Anything else? No? All right, council, I'll entertain a motion on item number 7.
I'll make a motion to approve item 7.
Second.
We have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Walker. We have a second by Councilmember Pilkington. Council, cast your vote. This item passes 5 votes to 0. Moving on to item 8 is the first reading in a public hearing to consider adopting an ordinance approving an amendment to ordinance number 2022-0059-0 to remove warehouse office from the list of prohibited uses within the general retail segment with a conditional use permit to allow warehouse office within the general retail segment on 75.248 plus or minus acres located in the city of Temple, Bell County, Texas, addressed as 7040 Brookside Boulevard. Mr. Chandler.
All right. Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. And so here's the site. So in yellow is the entire plan development, mixed use development that includes single family homes that are under construction now. And you can see on the right a fairly recent aerial that shows that the roads have been dug in. They're working on the site work and utilities. And so really what we're talking about today is just that northeast corner, about 10 acres. And so this is what it looks like. Hopefully that tire is gone. But either way, representative of the site recently. And so looking at our relevant master plans, including the future land use map as part of the 2020 comprehensive plan, which identifies this whole area as employment mixed use. Around the same time that we adopted the comp plan, corporate campus master plan did show this entire site as single family. And so the original plan development was adopted in October of 2022 and allowed the single family homes, of course, to the west that we already talked about, the general retail and the area that we're talking about today, the northeast corner of the property. And then, of course, the ordinance prohibited office warehouse at that time. So the developer and owner has come back saying that they would prefer to allow some small office warehouse with retail uses still around the perimeter. And that does require a conditional use permit in addition to the plan development amendment. Our development review committee did review this at the February 25th meeting. All comments have been addressed. The current recorded plat does show points of access that have been circled in green. So two of those along Brookside and of course Lightner Lane being the main access, and then Prairie View, 2 access points to the single family, and then also future access points shown in yellow and red at the top. And we'll go into a little more detail on that in a second. But a future access easement is a condition to allow for future connectivity to airport, of course, barring TxDOT approval at that time. So looking at the thoroughfare plan and just the mobility analysis, thanks to Mr. Deckman here. So Brookside shown as kind of the main boulevard into the entire neighborhood. That section would be classified in the future with future thoroughfare plan amendment as neighborhood collector. They're building that as, to collector standards. Of course, Airport, Highway 36 is a major arterial. Lightner Lane, a neighborhood collector, and the developer has agreed to and would be required to upgrade the entire stretch of that roadway from Airport to Prairie View to collector standards, including a sidewalk as well. Looking at the traffic impact analysis, just a rough comparison between the general retail for the entire 10 acres of this site that we're talking about today versus the combination of warehouse, office, and general retail would produce a similar number of trips. And so you can see them up there highlighted. And then, of course, in addition, the single family detached, the 290 lots would generate approximately 2,700 daily trips just per the Institute of Transportation Engineers land use ratio. So the developers indicated that the type of vehicles that would serve the warehouses, office warehouse, include box trucks, utility vehicles, UPS or Amazon Prime type vans, and of course, restaurant delivery trucks, which would include the occasional 18-wheeler if that retail does include restaurants. So as I mentioned, Lightner Lane would be reconstructed to neighborhood collector standards by the developer, and that is a condition in the plan development. The traffic impact analysis for this overall development, as required by TxDOT, does require deceleration lane for eastbound traffic on Airport to allow vehicles to turn safely into Lightner. And also, Lightner is being realigned, per TxDOT and certainly per our staff recommendations to have for safer turns at that intersection. And so looking at water and sewer, there's an existing 24-inch water line along Airport and an 18-inch east of there. And then the wastewater line, 18-inch to the north. And so this is the site plan, which would be binding if approved. So you can see in blue, 5 retail storefront buildings with a total of around 18,000 square feet. And then 35 warehouse office buildings, there'd be typically electricians, plumbers, tile folks to really, support our local construction industry. That it would also include 10 screened yards. You can see them, they're in light yellow. So it includes some storage, but with screening for these warehouse office uses. And the buildings for the warehouse office would range from 2,000 to 5,400 square feet. Site plan indicates 301 parking spaces, 9 enclosed dumpsters. So that has all been through the Development Review Committee process multiple times to ensure that what they're showing in the site plan does meet our standards, including dumpster locations, landscape perimeter with sod trees and shrubs, as well as parking islands with trees. And this exceeds, the overall landscaping does exceed our minimum of 5% of the site. They're showing almost 10%, 9.9% to be specific. Also, a landscape buffer that ranges from 5 feet to 13 feet on the west side that does abut a drainage, a city drainage facility, drainage ditch essentially. So that is, it is not paved either. That's just natural. And also, as I mentioned, upgrading the realignment of Lightner Lane, but that includes a 6-foot sidewalk on the west side of the street too, that would serve this development, connect to the other sidewalk that they're required to build along Airport because it's a major arterial. So here's some renderings of what the retail would look like, as well as warehouse office. So retail on the right, warehouse office lower left. So 21 notices were sent out to property owners within 200 feet. And so that's a total of 339, primarily because of all of the single family residential lots that of course have already been final platted. So 5 notices were returned in disagreement, but just to clarify, that 5 notices includes the 290 residential lots, all still under ownership of the builder. And so the builder is, I guess, concerned about going from all retail to adding office warehouse. Tom Staub, CEO for the development company Red Oak, he could perhaps address that, but other questions that you might have, he's available. And I believe his engineer is available online as well. So looking at the conditional use permit criteria in section 355 of our Unified Development Code, just a reminder that additional conditions could be added, but essentially the criteria is used to evaluate the impact on neighboring properties and also just safety, access, circulation within the development, and any other potential negative impacts on the surrounding area. And so just evaluating those criteria, staff has interpreted that it checks off all the boxes, including the compatibility with the neighboring property at this major arterial and a future collector that they are improving. Adequate utilities, safe and convenient movement of traffic, preventing odors, fumes, dust, vibration, lighting. They would be required to have down lighting to prevent light trespass, and also sufficient landscaping and screening, which does exceed our minimum codes. So I'm going to go through the list of the conditions. One just being that the conditions from the 2022 ordinance would still apply. except as follows, that the general retail standards having, substantial compliance with the site development plan, the general retail shall dedicate a shared access easement to the parcel to the north. So you can see that's labeled as number 3, so that at the time that that property develops, they would have to provide shared access with the potential to have an additional access through the future development and for this property. So that the retail buildings are to be built either prior to or with the office warehouse. And the way we would enforce that is that all 5 of the retail buildings shown on here in blue would have to have certificates of occupancy, to open prior to issuing any certificates of occupancy for the warehouse office buildings for any one of those. Talked a little bit about Lightner Lane and their requirements to upgrade it to a neighborhood collector. Number 5 on the screen, and you can see how Lightner Lane would be rerouted. So it essentially meets airport at a perpendicular intersection, which is important for safety. And the timing of the road reconstruction and completion would have to align with general retail and or multifamily development approved in the plan development to the south of Brookside. Whichever of those phases comes first, and the road completed prior to the issuance of any certificates of occupancy, that the street cross section shall generally comply with standards within the Temple Comprehensive Plan, including 55 feet of right of way, and then the minimum 6-foot sidewalk on the west side of Lightner. So staff recommends approval of the requested amendment and the conditional use permit, subject to those previous conditions. And at the April 21st meeting, Planning and Zoning Commission voted 6-0 to recommend approval. And just a reminder that because of the disapproval, return notices, exceeds the 20% threshold, which triggers a supermajority vote if you all were to approve this. So rather than just having 3 of you say yes, it would require 4. And that is all that I have. Happy to answer any questions. And once again, Mr. Staub, I know he has some slides that if you like, we do have them at the tail end of the presentation at your discretion.
Okay, very good. Council, anything for Mr. Chandler? No? All right, this item is subject to a public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on this may do so. As usual, we ask you step to the podium or raise your hand on the platform. Alan?
Yes, sir. Seems like to me that since the guy that's going to be developing all the residential lots is against this, and he feels like it's going to make it hard for him to sell those houses and lots if this is approved. So I would recommend don't do it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Kelly, nothing? Okay. Would you like to speak?
Council, Mayor, thank you.
Okay, got it back.
Yeah, so we're very excited to bring our one of our concepts here to Temple, Texas. I've been in this market since 2020, where I met my wife a long time ago and came to know this city quite well from being here most weekends. A little bit about what we are and who we are. We are a Austin-based developer. We are one of the largest in this region with about 5,000 home sites all through Texas, and we are out in Arizona as well. We consider ourselves an elevated developer. So of the likes of Hillwood and Signorelli out of Houston, you will find a lot of park space in our communities, as you can see with this one here in Temple. We pride ourselves on elevated concepts. So I think what you will see here in the next few slides is that within your retail segment in Temple. We do not typically do the traditional any development, so you will not see a very boring masonry style retail concept in this plan. This is very modern to attract some of the best quality tenants. But with that said, I do have our lead architect on the call, and I think it's important to understand how we got to a point of this design and where it all came from. So, Mark Lynn, if you wouldn't mind just kind of giving the origin story of how we decided to design this this project, Pepper Creek, in the way that we did.
Sure. Yeah. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Great.
Yes, sir.
Thanks, Tom and council and mayor. Yeah, let me give you a little bit of background. From the very beginning, we decided we didn't want this to be the typical flex industrial retail project. So one of the very first things we were determined to do is break up what are typically very long expanses of wall. And so we broke them into much shorter segments and pushed and pulled them back and forth to separate them and have them read as separate buildings rather than one long expanse of wall. In addition to that, we've modified the heights. Some have parapets, some do not. So we've tried to create a little more human scale in that capacity as well. And thirdly, we have changed the materials. In the flex industrial buildings, we've used a combination of colors, which along with the different heights and pushing and pulling these planes back and forth helps, as I said, to create a human scale and bring the scale of this entire project down. On the retail buildings, we've followed a very similar approach, but we've incorporated nicer materials for the retail component. So we once again broke up long expanses of walls into shorter segments so that they read more as separate buildings instead of one long 100-foot plus long wall. We also modified the heights of these buildings. We've had different materials on the exterior and different patterns in different directions to further differentiate these buildings and make them appear to have a smaller, more human scale. So for the retail, we have a variety of materials, everything from cement siding, cement fiber siding turned vertically to cement fiber siding turned horizontally in a grid pattern that's painted different colors. And in between those two, we've used a product called thermally modified wood because we much prefer to use as many real materials as we could. And we loved the look of the wood from the very first time we put it on the drawings. Thermally modified wood, if you're not familiar with the product, is wood, natural wood, that is cooked under high heat and pressure. And what that does, it eliminates all of the moisture in the wood, and further, it breaks down and dissolves all of the sugars. So without moisture, the wood doesn't rot, and without the sugars, pests don't eat the wood, right? So it will last at a minimum 30 plus years. It requires periodic sealing to maintain the color and the finish. But even if you didn't do that, you know, that's purely aesthetic. Without that, the wood would still not rot and not be eaten by insects for the same amount of time. It would just turn a weathered gray appearance. So the other thing we did on this project is we committed to using all xeriscaping of local plants, species. So the entire site is xeriscaped. And as you heard, we've actually increased or doubled the amount minimum required landscaping. And we're endeavoring to make it as regional as possible to not only save water as drought tolerant landscaping, but to require very little maintenance over time as well. And we really squeezed, I know personally, I pushed our civil team to find every available square foot that we could put some landscaping into the project, because I think that really, really helps. So I think all in all, we think the project not only meets our original design goals, but I think we've actually exceeded them. And we're very happy with the way it turned out, and we'd love to have your support for the project. I'm available if there are any questions. I'd be happy to answer them. If not, I could throw it back to Tom.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you, sir. Council, any questions for the engineer or the developer?
Almost done now. Yeah, 2 more slides.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I was rushing you there.
Yeah. So, as someone who's also a economics guy, I care about jobs, as I'm sure you all do as well. So what I did for you all is I broke this up into 3 main categories of jobs that are created during construction, jobs that are created from those supplying the construction people, and then those jobs that will be there ongoing after this is done. And so collectively across the project, we expect this to create somewhere between 400 to 500 jobs at any point in time, with somewhere between 175 to 225 permanent jobs in the region. Right? And these again will be jobs that support contractors, window people, painters, plumbers, HVAC, all the retail in the front, restaurants, what have you. Right. So, these numbers are based upon standards in the industry as you would measure the impact regionally. Okay. Unlike most developers, I'm an open book when it comes to financials. So I'm showing our cards here in terms of what we're spending on cost per phase. As Brian mentioned, we are committing to building out retail in phase 1. It's roughly 20,700 square feet from our measurements, so a little bit more than what you mentioned, Brian. And then, of course, our office would also be built in that same phase 1, collectively about 42,000 square feet across phase 1. Phase 2 would be all office with around 51,000 square feet. And then we would end ballpark 2028, 29 with the remainder 32,000 square feet. Okay, so collectively, again, 125,000 square feet of space with about a roughly $16 million investment in this project. I think one thing that we had from our last meeting here was it was hard to understand the phasing process of this. And so I challenged our team to go back and design something that we could show you as to how this is going to work. So if you look here on the screen, and it's a bit counterintuitive, but the red section is going to be phase 1, which makes sense. And then phase 2 is going to be the gray section on the far left. And the reason that is because the section in the middle, we were worried that if we're developing behind these first phase sites, it could disrupt business, it might disrupt restaurants, and it might reduce foot traffic. And of course, we want all of our tenants to succeed in their business. And so we will spend the extra money to develop the full site on the civil side up front and not phase that out. We will go and develop phase 1, phase 2, and then finish with that center section all said and done. Okay. So that's all I had in terms of the plan. We have other questions in terms of civil and utilities. We also have our civil engineer on the line. So if any of those questions, we're here to answer those.
Okay, thank you. Now, any more comments? Anything for Mr. Staub before he steps away?
I'm just curious if when this was purchased, did you agree for commercial and then decide later that you changed and decided to do?
Yeah, so
something?
great question. So when we first purchased this site, the goal was to have a primary mixed use community. We were going to build up the lots, work with our builder partners. The market turned sour, and we had to offload those lots to a local builder. The commercial site, I have a lot of friends in the industry, and we assumed it would be some sort of traditional retail site. One of the key takeaways that I heard over and over from them is that there's an abundance of quick trips all around Temple. So from their perspective, there's an oversaturation of gas stations, C-stores, and traditional retail. So this thing was marketed for 12 to 15 months with a variety of brokers, and we had no interest. So we said, well, I have investors, I have to pay these guys back. What do I do? So we got creative. We asked our partners out of Dallas, what's missing in Temple and really a lot of places in this part of Texas. And it's these smaller footprint office spaces that cater to the contractors and those that use their hands for work. And we've already received great feedback from tenant partners and our partner out of Dallas on this site. So we feel very confident that this is the right fit in commercial. But no, it was not the initial plan.
Seems like there's an overwhelming intent that you're not the right thing. That's not the right fit from the developer behind you, right? I mean, 300 and something.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I've seen some retail developments in my day, and this one's pretty nice. In fact, one of our key items in our bigger communities, 2,000 home sites per community, we actually see that retail is a amenity for people. In fact, pools and clubhouses are way down the list now. People want walkability to coffee shops. They want walkability to a veterinarian clinic for their dog. They want to go to the dog parks. Those are the modern day amenities. It's not your traditional big empty clubhouse. Those days are gone. So as a developer myself, I would sit here and argue that all day long.
Okay. Anything else? Thank you, Mr. Staub.
All right.
Anybody else online or in chambers? Nothing? All right. Very good. Then Council, I'll close this public hearing and entertain a motion on item number 8.
I was gonna say, I would love to have something that looks like this in town. A couple things, I think this area with the investment that the city's done in our parks and stuff over there, I think the original plan, I guess it's only you two left that were here when the original PD were voted on. I think that was a good idea there. I think there's places where this would be a real good amenity, and I agree that there's a need for those types of office warehouse things. Having said that, the people that sold this property had it the way they wanted their neighbors to the homes they were building to be. And if I sold a lot next door to me with some restrictions on it or a PD or anything of that sort, and then the people bought it and changed it, I would not be happy. And for that reason, I would make a motion for denial.
I'll second the motion for denial.
So a yes vote is a vote of denial. Okay. All right. So we have a motion to deny by Councilmember Pilkington. We have a second to deny by Mayor Pro Tem Walker. Council, please cast your vote. The motion to deny passes 4 votes yes, 0 votes no. I'm sorry, and 1 vote no. I misread that. So the motion to deny is approved. So, Mr. Stop. Sorry about that.
Just so you know, with your ordinance, it's already listed. This is an approved use. So I'm not sure what the.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Next item, number 9 is the first reading in a public hearing to consider adopting an ordinance authorizing a rezoning request from commercial, light industrial, and multifamily 2 to commercial with a conditional use permit to allow a contractor storage and equipment yard on 18.3549 plus or minus acres located in the Uri Holbrule Survey, abstract number 1009, and the Garrett S. Hardcastle Survey, abstract number 405, City of Temple, Bell County, Texas, address is 3911 North General Bruce Drive. Mr. Deckman.
All right, good evening, Mayor, Council. Good to see you again. So this case got a whole lot simpler a couple of days ago. The applicant requested to withdraw the conditional use permit for that contractor storage yard, which only leaves the zoning on the table. So that's inset, and I'll show you a larger view. This project is on I-35. It's directly south of Buc-ee's. And you can see that on the aerial photo to the right. It's part of the Centex 35 logistics facility. And you see their large structures on the east side, kind of on the right of that photo. So we're talking about the 2 strips of land on either side of Transfer Way, where it comes off of the frontage road. A little hard to see in this view, but there is a deceleration lane coming off the frontage road onto Transfer Way, and you can see it on the photo right there in the bottom right. That's that decel lane. We got a couple photos, one from ground level, one from the exit ramp, looking down into the site. And then a view from the site looking back at I-35 showing you that elevated section of the exit ramp coming down to the frontage road. So this was 18.3 acres. It was originally a rezoning and a CUP. The CUP has been withdrawn. So all we're doing with this action is taking away that remnant strip of light industrial and that polygon of multifamily. And they've requested to have the whole site rezoned as commercial. As you can see, most of it's commercial now. On the thoroughfare plan, you've got I-35 is the highway, and then nearby Loop 363 is also the highway. You've got the future land use shows the whole thing as regional commercial, so it is compliant with both of those. There are existing utilities that run across the site, including some stormwater channels and drainage that feeds off into a large retention pond on the northeast side of the Centex 35 property. We did conduct the traffic analysis, and you can see that this is one of the highest traffic and highest crash hotspots in the city. That's because you've got two highways interchange, high volume of traffic for Buc-ee's, the industrial park, the truck stop, Wendy's on the other side. And when you dig down into the crashes, you see that, you know, there's some common factors of controlled speed and distracted driving, but it's also the reason this is a crash hotspot. The way that map is calculated, it doesn't necessarily separate the two. So there's some of those crashes are on 363, some of those on the main lanes at 35 that have nothing to do with the frontage road, but there's a lot of traffic. Traffic usually generates more crashes. And in fact, we had a fatality in this region yesterday, which nobody wants to see that. Did send out public notification, did receive a response back from Buc-ee's. I spent 52 years on this planet, never spoke to a Buc-ee's lawyer. And with this case, I've spoken to 3 of them. They're all very nice people. I'm gonna be on the record and say that so they don't come after me. The objection that they had.
Seems so friendly. The beavers.
The objection they had was to the CUP, the nature of that project. They felt was going to be detrimental to their business. In this case, that use has since been withdrawn. They'd asked, well, then what's next? What could it be? At this point, we don't know. No tenant has been identified. If it hasn't, has not been shared with staff. If it goes in there, it would have to, first of all, comply with commercial base zoning. And then second of all, does it need a CUP per the I-35 overlay? If it does, we may be back. If it doesn't, then they would have to move to the I-35 corridor design review. So there's the architectural and the landscaping and the parking requirements. And certain applicants, we've had different pre-development meetings where we explain that they decide that that's not the site for them. So if another use, another tenant is identified, that's the process that would take place. But right now, we don't have a tenant, we don't have a CUP. What we have in front of you is a request to clean up that zoning that is compliant with the future land use and thoroughfare map and public facilities. And staff recommends approval of the requested rezoning. At the June 16th P&Z meeting, they also voted 7-2 to recommend approval of the rezoning. They had voted to recommend denial of the CUP. So that's why you have a 7-2 vote. They had combined that into one motion, but they were on board with the rezoning.
They
Don't
have
need
two
those
votes.
anymore because there's no CUP.
Did they have 2 different votes, or they just,
They combined it into one motion.
so they voted for the zoning?
They voted for the zoning and against the CUP. So, and like I said, staff recommends approval. That was the P&Z vote, and I'll take any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Deckman. Anything else for Jason? Council?
I agree with Buc-ee's and their attorneys. I was in disagreement of the CUP because I don't think a laydown yard is the highest and best use right next to one of our most highly trafficked intersections. So I'm very pleased that they removed that, and looking forward to seeing just the commercial and what can come of that.
We're curious to see what comes. We want to see development.
Yeah.
We just want to be the right one.
Right.
Item 9 is subject to a public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak may do so. No, Mr. Lidle? No one from the audience? All right, council, I will close the public hearing, and if there's no further comments, I'll entertain a motion on item 9.
So moved. Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion to approve by Councilmember Kirkendall. We have a second by Councilmember Grant. Council, cast your vote. Item 9 passes 5 votes to 0. Item 10 is to consider adopting a resolution approving a development site plan in accordance with Ordinance 2005-4025 for an office building on approximately 0.803 plus or minus acres, described as Adams Island Commercial amending plat number 1, block 1, lot 1 in the city of Temple, Bell County, Texas, addressed as 9209 Adams Lane. Mr. Deckman.
On to, for me, what is the end of the Jason show tonight, resolution for PD site plan. So this is located out at the end of, not quite the end of Adams, but the end of Adams Lane at the intersection of West Adams and 317. This is going to follow that. Let's play the game. How do you pronounce that? Is it Wapiti or Wapiti? I'll take suggestions from the audience. See, I'm hearing different. How?
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am? There, well, let's call it that. However you pronounce it, the development to the east, this is going to echo that. Because of the ordinance, it does require the site plan to be presented to P and Z and council, which is why we're here. So we've got some site photos. On the lower right shows the existing building right next door. The top left shows corner of that building and then the site to be developed. You can see across Adams Lane, it's agricultural field. And then on the lower left is looking down towards that Cornerstone Automotive. So the site plan does show the suites. So one of the large suite on the end would be the dental suite, the periodontal that they mentioned. The other suite, the other 3 could be various office or retail uses allowed with the GR. Again, no tenants have been identified yet. There's sidewalks around the building. There's landscaping, not just around the grounds, but within the parking area. They've got trees on and shrubs on those little island bump outs. There's 25 parking spaces required. They're showing 32. What I also like is that they're showing 2 entrances with that fire lane laid out, which is great. And then there's a drainage area on the lower left that would feed into that open channel along Adams where that exit road is going down to 317. The applicant has provided some 3D renderings. So you see it's got that vertical seam siding with some either brick or masonry accents along the entrances and along the base. The peaked roof, some dormers, very similar to what's there now with awnings over the windows and the entrances. There are existing utilities. Adams Lane is not a thoroughfare. Adams Avenue is, but this doesn't have access to Adams Avenue. It's only off Adams Lane. I did neglect to mention that Adams Lane does get that sidewalk, that 10-foot sidewalk is shown at the top of the site plan. Will continue the existing sidewalk that has already been built for the other developments. And staff recommends approval of the site plan for Adams Lane Periodontal, and I'll take any questions.
Thanks, sir. Council, anything for Jason? Nothing? This item is not subject to a public hearing. So council, I'll entertain a motion on item 10.
Make a motion to approve?
Second.
I have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Walker, a second by Councilmember Pilkington. Please cast your vote. 10 passes 5 votes to 0. Item 11 is to consider adopting a resolution authorizing a construction contract with Matus Construction 2 Limited of Belton to complete the Temple Belton Wastewater Treatment Plant Phase 2 Treatment Plant Expansion Project in the estimated amount of $50,664,750.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I have a quick presentation for you recommending the construction award for the Temple Belton plant. Quick history, phase one completed back in 2020. The design flow was 10 million gallons per day. At that time, there was no change in the existing capacity with the 30 MGD peak flow. And included improvements were new headworks for the facility, odor control, EQ basin, and equalization basin, excuse me, that provided a plus or minus 9 MGD flow capacity. To this date, since phase one's been completed, 7.5 MGD is the current average flow. With phase two, it'll increase capacity by 6 MGD to 16 with a peak flow of 40 MGD. The included improvements are headworks modifications, which include a new fine screen and grit removal, a IFAS train, which biologically treats the wastewater. That's the 16 MGD capacity increase. Also, there will be a new clarifier, number 5, a gravity thickener, phosphorus removal, which includes filters and UV disinfection, and modifications to the outfall. Looking forward, phase 3, we're projecting expansion in 2040, but of course that's subject to growth and development, which will increase the capacity by another 6 million gallons per day with a 57 peak flow. Those improvements include a second IFAS train and a clarifier 6. And just an important thing to note that planning begins when the average flow exceeds the 75% of the current flow, which would be 12 MGD for 3 consecutive months. And here's a quick diagram. We have our headworks close to the FM 93. That's where the grit and screen will be. We have the we have the first IFAS train and the green rectangle. We have a clarifier number 5. That's the larger circle, and the disc filter and UV and outfall towards the Nolan Creek. 2 proposals were received on June 17th, 2025, about 10 million apart. Matus submitted the low proposal of 67.5 million. And of course, Temple is responsible for 75% of that cost, which is the a little over $50.5 million contract. KPA and staff recommends the proposal be awarded to Matus Construction of Temple. Construction duration will last approximately 30 months. And if you have any questions, I can take them now.
Thank you, ma'am. Counsel, anything for Ms. Seltzer?
We're in good hands with Matus, so it's good to know.
Good thing it's a big contract. They had to wait a while.
All right, very good.
Brian, I thought this was a reclaimed water plant.
This is a reclamation plant. I'm sorry. Sorry, that's my fault.
All right. All right, very good. Counsel, if there are no questions, then I'll entertain a motion on item 11.
Move to approve item 11.
I'll second it.
We have a motion by Councilmember Grant. We have a second by Mayor Pro Tem Walker. Council, please cast your vote. Item 11 passes 5 votes to 0. Moving on to item 12, is consider adopting a resolution appointing 1 member to the Hill Country Transit District Board. That's a board that I've served on. Nope, not that one. I'm sorry. I have not served on that one. The Hill Country Transit Board is one that Mike has worked on quite a while, and the city of Temple has just recently been able to obtain another voting seat on that, so we need to appoint someone to that. And so on the Hill Country Transit Board, it is my nomination to nominate Councilmember Grant to that board. And Councilmember, if you would be willing to accept that nomination, I would accept a motion.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Kirkendall. We have a second by Councilmember Pilkington. Council, please cast your vote. Very good. That vote passes 4 votes yes. I know, I don't,
Also, I want to thank Mike. He is in charge of Hill Country Transit this year and he's doing a great job.
you in charge of the whole thing?
Whole thing.
Thanks.
I don't know if we're in good hands here, but they're his. So.
Yeah. No, the Hill Country's been a real heavy lift for the city for 3 years, 4 years, seems like 10 years. But there were some changes that really need to be made, and city staff and the county, so many of the organizations within the area jumped on board, made hard decisions about that, and ultimately, I think that we're getting a better product for the residents.
Really dug in.
Yeah,
and
Mike has.
Put a lot of hours toward this, so thank you, Mike.
Yeah.
And thank you, Zoe, for being willing to
Yeah.
serve.
Yeah. It's good work, and I think you'll enjoy it. So item 13.
Jessica did it for a long time too, and through a lot of the detailed work, so.
Yeah, a
Yeah.
lot of fun.
Went to a meeting or two for me when I was out.
It's a fun board.
I didn't do anything.
I like it.
You don't get bored.
Item 13 is consider adopting a resolution appointing 1 member to the Clean Temple Metropolitan Planning Organization. This is the one that I've served on for many years, and it's also a very interesting board. We make lots of important decisions that, again, really impact what we do here in Temple. And this opening became available when Councilmember Long resigned, and so Councilmember Kirkendall has agreed to take that spot. And actually, Mike, you're on that board too. So, you gotta say no every once in a while, Mike.
Yeah.
And so, Councilmember Kirkendall, I appreciate your willingness to serve on, again, that's a good board. I've been on that one since 2013. And there is, again, there's a lot to learn, but it's great for the community. I think you'll enjoy it.
Look forward to it.
You bet. Very good. So with that, I will entertain a motion, council, on item 13.
I moved to put Councilmember Kirkendall on the K Temple Board.
I'll second it.
We have a motion by Councilmember Pilkington. We have a second by Mayor Pro Tem Walker. Council, please cast your vote. Item 13 passes 4 votes yes. And is that a no, or that's an abstention, right? So, and 4 votes yes, 0 votes no, 1 abstention.
God, if it wasn't no.
I told you, you still lose. You're still on it. Very good. So thank you all for hanging in there with us. I told Carl whenever he got on the city council, I said, man, sometimes our meetings are over by 5:30 or 6, and 2 of them, the only 2 have been 7:30. So maybe it's Carl.
About 10 hours.
Yeah, that's right.